Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. It's Tuesday, January 27th, and we're talking Chiefs today with Star columnist Sam McDowell and beat writer Pete Sweeney. Hello, Pete.
Hey, good morning.
Sam, how you doing?
Good.
The big news in the recent days is the return of Eric Bieniemy to the role of offensive coordinator. He was the Chiefs OC from 2018 through 2022, and as you may recall, there was some pretty successful seasons for the Chiefs and the offense. 2 Super Bowl victories, 2 Patrick Mahomes MVP years, an offense that never was lower than 6th in the NFL in points or yards. Bieniemy left after the 2022 season. He'd been looking for a head coaching job, but landed as the offensive coordinator and assistant head coach of the Washington Commanders. That lasted 1 year because head coach Ron Rivera was fired. Bieniemy went to UCLA for a year, then the Chicago Bears as the running backs coach, and then the Bears had an excellent year. So now Bieniemy is back in Kansas City. Sam, why?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice if Andy Reid had just articulated that point yesterday. Whenever I asked him about it, and we all asked him about it for 15 minutes yesterday. But I mean, look, Andy Reid's trying to walk a tightrope between not diminishing anything that Matt Nagy provided them while trying to complement what Eric Bieniemy will provide them. But to me, it's clear. I mean, it seems like he thinks that the team needs to be more disciplined, and we've all been at training camp. I mean, Eric Bieniemy's voice is the loudest one on the field when he's out there, and I still remember that. I'm sure you guys too. The first practice with Adam at training camp 3 years ago was noticeably quieter out there, just not hearing his voice because, I mean, he's someone, he doesn't care about your stature. I mean, he's if he thinks you need critiqued, he'll critique you. If he thinks you need criticizing, he'll criticize you. We've seen him get in the face of Patrick Mahomes during the game in Indianapolis. We've seen him with Travis Kelce on the sideline, to the point where Kelce pushed him. I think Andy Reid just feels like his team probably needs to be more disciplined, and to me, that's going to pertain more to the running backs and wide receivers than anything. But yeah, I think that's probably why, but I still think, there's probably still a missing piece there.
We'll get to that missing piece in a moment. But Pete, do you think that's what Patrick Mahomes referred to when he talked about accountability last week?
Yeah, I just find the situation very peculiar in my mind. I don't think it's a wrong decision. I'm not sure if it will be the right call. I just remember, I covered the team for a long time, not just for the Star, but I just remember when Bieniemy was sort of log jammed, and Andy Reid had this almost coaching train going where it was Peterson gets a job, Nagy gets a job, Bieniemy, and then I felt like at the time he was ready to promote Mike Kafka, who eventually ended up leaving because of the Bieniemy logjam. And at that time, I kind of felt like this had run its course in a way, not in a negative way of a divorce necessarily, but a mutual parting where Bieniemy had realized, okay, I need to kind of what they're saying about Nagy right now, get out of my own to prove it. And I just never thought that they would circle back and bring him back. But to Sam's point, I think he's right. And outside looking in, we never know the details inside, but maybe there is a lack of accountability. Patrick Mahomes certainly alluded to that, and maybe Andy Reid eventually missed that, and he looked at what Bieniemy had done with Ben Johnson in Chicago, where these 2 running backs, DeAndre Swift, who people had written off, Kyle Monangai, late round draft pick, they combined to really spearhead rushing offense that was 3rd in the league in terms of yards per game. So some recent success. He knows what Andy Reid knows what he's getting there. And I thought the play calling aspect was interesting here. And I think this is where maybe a lot of fans and a lot of our readers may be frustrated with the move. Eric Bieniemy is a person that's going to come in, and no one in any kind of offensive troubles are going to be begging for Bieniemy to call plays. And I think there's a comfort level with that with Andy Reid, and he's somebody that is going to always want to spearhead the offense and call his own plays. And I think that's part of it too. And so for me, maybe this wasn't the perfect candidate in our eyes, or maybe some players' eyes who kind of remember and didn't really like his style, but it was Andy Reid's perfect candidate, and I think that's why he's back.
Yeah, let's not confuse the issue here. Eric Bieniemy was not brought back to call plays.
Right.
That just doesn't happen. It didn't happen with Matt Nagy. Didn't happen with Doug Peterson. It's not going to happen. It didn't happen with Eric Bieniemy 1. It won't happen with Eric Bieniemy 2. So I just wanted to say when you mentioned it, I automatically had a flashback to St. Joe and hearing that booming voice from the far end of the field, of the second field. There's Bieniemy screaming at whatever running back or wide receiver, and it's the only coach that I've ever heard in my years of going up to training camp who yelled at a player in that way. And I do think that this is a team that needs some of that, might need some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, this is like the press stuff, and people are sick of hearing about that. Feels like there's been a turning against sports journalists to some extent over the past month or two. But yeah, I mean, like when the receivers are leaving the locker room after losses before the media can even get in there, and again, like that's not on the field stuff, but I just think there needs to be a higher sense of responsibility and maybe like how to do it. And I think Eric Bieniemy can certainly bring that to the table. And I shared this in just like a one post recall of a story to your point. I always think it's funny. This was the days when he was a running backs coach, but we're at training camp, and it always sticks out of my brain where a running back like wasn't running hard enough, or it was something where he didn't finish. Remember, he's always like finished to the end, and he just shouts as loud as he can. If you were dying of thirst in the desert, I wouldn't give you water right now. Like and it's funny, right? But like, I think he commands absolute effort. And, with how often Andy Reid references how hard Travis Kelce works in practice, that is certainly, I think, something he's looking for 100% every day, every practice, every rep. And yeah, maybe there isn't the breath of fresh air from an offensive scheme standpoint, but I think you certainly bring back that aspect into the fold.
Sam, there are a few things to fix with this offense, isn't there? I mean, this was pretty mediocre when the final numbers, and even after having a pretty good stretch early in the season, this was a below average offense.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a week 3 to week 7 where they totaled more yards than any team in the league. So I can see why Andy Reid thinks that the offense was pretty good for a stretch last year. But the fact is, and I wrote about this last week and touched on it again, and this morning's column is, they didn't perform when the game was on the line. And I think it happens so frequently that they can't chalk it up to a coincidence or bad luck. And to me, that's where it factors in something that Patrick Mahomes said a couple of weeks ago when we got him on a Zoom, that, when you have so much tape out there, teams tend to watch it. And I think what they would watch more than anything else is, what do you do when the game's on the line? What do you do in those big third down plays? What do you do in those big fourth down plays? The one that came to mind was that Houston Texans play where the Texans seemed to know every route that was coming on that fourth down play where Andy Reid went for it on his own half of the field. And I'm sure they did. I'm sure they've seen that play before. And so to me, they've got to expand the playbook, even if they're clearly, because that's to me what another takeaway from this Eric Bieniemy thing is, they're not changing the scheme. You don't bring Eric Bieniemy in to change your scheme, or, I mean, I'm sure he's learned something from his last 3 stops, but it's still going to be Andy Reid's offense. And so if you're not going to change a scheme, your self-evaluation has to figure out how to become more expansive and less predictable.
I do think there's an additional point that's interesting to me on the run game, and it's more about where they stand right now than maybe anything he might do from a schematic standpoint. Right now, their starting running back, according to like UFA math, is Brashard Smith. They don't have a running backs coach. And so how involved is he going to be in potentially picking that veteran that maybe they signed to a value deal or maybe a mid-round back? Are they going all in, right? Like there's always this outside chance that they try to get Jeremiah Love, who everyone is talking about. So I just think how successful he was in Chicago, I just wonder how much sway that'll give him now that he's back of determining those things.
Pete Sweeney and Sam McDowell here on SportsBeat KC, and we're talking Chiefs. Andy Reid said earlier this week that he talked to other people.
Did you get a list?
Dude, I mean, he kind of said that. I mean, I asked that, and he could not have talked more around that question, right? I mean, he did not want to answer that because we know, for example, he would talk to Joe Blameyer in-house. But I asked him specifically, did he talk
to him in the hallway? Because so what are you getting for lunch?
Yeah,
I talked to another candidate.
I mean, I talked to him specifically, like, I asked him specifically about outside candidates, and that's what I don't know. I mean, I don't know that they brought anyone else into the building the way that they brought Eric Bieniemy into the building for his interview.
What do you think?
It seems like no. I mean, you don't want to just be on a Zoom and have Andy tell you something and kind of nudge that he did, and then be like, no, that it feels like if they did, and let's assume for the benefit of the doubt that they did, this was a one-track job. It really has seemed to me, outside looking in, that Andy Reid was beelining to bring back Eric Bieniemy, and look, when he took over in 2013, it's hard to remember now, but the big thing for him was he wanted to control the organization, and it's ultimately his call. And Clark Hunt has afforded that. He's been rewarded with 5 Super Bowl trips, 3 Super Bowl titles, and so even though they had a tough year, I think he still remains in control of it.
Pete, do you think this says anything about? Did Andy Reid make a comment about his future with this hire? Didn't bring somebody in from the outside, maybe a potential successor. Matt Nagy still hasn't landed. I imagine that's going to happen at some point, but
I don't think the longevity for me, maybe the health part of it. It's been a year or two now, right, where he had to have Dave Togue come to the podium. There was some kind of medical scare. This is someone that is entering mid to late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I mean, we're seeing it with Kansas, completely different. I don't want to compare, their doctor reports. We don't have them, right? But like, as you get older, maybe it isn't wise to be screaming at the top of your lungs and getting into a shoving match with Travis Kelce. Maybe let someone younger do that if you feel like you have to have that aspect of it. And so I do think about that. I think Andy Reid wants to go as long as his health takes him. Right now they're signed, I believe, through the 2029 season. So that would be, for me personally, the next time I'd wonder, does he want to sign another contract? But I think as long as his health permits him, he's going to ride with Patrick Mahomes as long as he can. But I do wonder about, like, maybe he's saying to himself, I can't be that guy anymore that's getting into the face of these gigantic men and telling them they're not doing good enough. And the perfect candidate to do that is Eric Bieniemy, if that's what you're looking for. So,
okay, let's take a break here, and when we return, we'll discuss the Super Bowl matchup, among other topics. We're back on SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Star and KCUR. We're talking Chiefs with Star columnist Sam McDowell and beat writer Pete Sweeney. Before we move on to the Super Bowl matchup, let's discuss a little bit of Matt Nagy's future. It was framed in such a way that this basically was decided before the season that this would be Nagy's final year in Kansas City. We didn't know it, but it seems to me that that's what the part of the messaging that Andy Reid gave us earlier this week. Is that how you read it?
Yeah, and I think, look, the writing was on the wall certainly late in the season and throughout the playoffs. But, Andy Reid basically said the conversation was before the season that this would happen, that he would evaluate opportunities elsewhere. And Pete mentioned that there's some similarity here with the fact that Eric Bieniemy did this 3 years ago. And to me, again, that's a takeaway from this switch, is that no matter who's the OC, you're in Andy Reid's shadow. And on the one hand, he said something about when he talked about Matt Nagy before he was asked a question, he said basically to take the purity of it, he said to get my name out of it. So in that sense, he's referencing the outside perception is that this is Andy Reid's offense and Patrick Mahomes' offense. But in the other sense, he talked about Matt Nagy having the opportunity to, quote, run his own show. Well, that's the reason for the perception, is because he's not running his own show here in Kansas City, which, again, I keep coming back to it, but there's so much talk throughout this season about Matt Nagy and blame for Matt Nagy, same as there was with Eric Bieniemy before he left.
There was no doubt about it.
A lot of the people that view Eric Bieniemy as a solution were calling him the problem 3 years ago. And it's just a reminder that this is Andy Reid. Like, the numbers belong at the end of the day to Andy Reid. It's a collaborative room. There's a lot of voices in that room, and he takes input from a lot of people, but the buck stops with him, with the offensive performance. And if you want to praise, if you want to criticize, I think he's the main target always.
Is that going to prevent, or is that hurting Nagy's quest to become a head coach for the second time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I also think like it hasn't helped that after his Super Bowl win, Doug Peterson has kind of flamed out, right? I don't think that that helps when you start to see some of that. Kafka had a nice little run in New York, but obviously that ended in ultimately failure. He won't be returning to New York. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, if I'm an owner out there, I would be asking in one of these interviews, what is your role in game? And in these interviews, you got to be honest. And I don't think Nagy or any coordinator that we've seen under Andy Reid is doing all that much in terms of the final decision. Like maybe there are some aspects where Andy Reid feels a little stale and will give a series to a play caller. We never really get that information. But in terms of like the offense, sort of what Sam was alluding to, I mean, in game, you got to be thinking this is 95 to 99% Andy Reid. I mean, how much more is the coordinator doing? I think when the owner is hiring someone, this is a cycle. Yes, there are a lot of jobs out there, but there's also a lot of really good play calling candidates. And I wonder if that's leaving Nagy out in the cold a little bit.
As of now, we're recording this on Tuesday morning. 3 jobs remain open. I think I'm right about this. Cleveland Browns, Vegas Raiders, and the Arizona Cardinals. I think Nagy would take any one of them that was offered.
He's talked to the Raiders and the Cardinals. We do know that. I have not seen him connected to the Browns. And I mean, that's become a running joke in the NFL right now. It's like you'd rather keep your job or have maybe a job in media or something than go to the Cleveland Browns disaster mess. And so I wonder if that's even a path that he's considering.
I think it might be more likely we'll see him become a play-calling offensive coordinator, maybe with the Eagles. The Ravens have an opening. The Commanders all have pretty good all of them have good quarterback situations. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's where we saw Matt Nagy end up.
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely is more likely to get an offensive coordinator track than a head coach track, but I don't even think that's a guarantee. I mean, to be honest, one of the jobs I was looking at thinking that might make sense for him was the Ohio State OC job that it looks like Arthur Smith is probably going to get out of Pittsburgh. I mean, I don't know that there's going to be a guaranteed landing spot for him right now after interviewing in Tennessee. And look, I mean, I think he's probably finished second. He probably finished runner-up in Tennessee. And I still think Matt Nagy is a good head coaching candidate. I think he could do a lot worse. He's a really smart guy. I think he does come into the room with new ideas every day. I think this offense, the final numbers looked worse than what it performed throughout a major portion of the season. But again, I do think that there has to be some change made with this offense, and whatever happened, whoever led the play calling and the playbook and the scheme itself, I mean, Matt Nagy was certainly a voice in that room.
Okay, so I heard this is a note that this group here will appreciate, talking about the Super Bowl matchup between the Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. By preseason odds, this is the most unlikely Super Bowl matchup in NFL history. The longest odd.
Really?
Yeah. I think that the numbers were plus 6,000 and plus 8,000. I can't remember. New England had to have the longer set of odds here. The most unlikely Super Bowl based on preseason odds in the 60 years of the Super Bowl. And when I heard that, I'm thinking, so it couldn't have been the Browns and the Cardinals or something, to have the 2 most unlikely teams to combine to be in a Super Bowl matchup. You've got 2 pretty healthy brands in the Patriots and the Seahawks. But here we are. A couple of
You're right. The Patriots were the 80-1, 4, 5, 6, so which was tied for the 9th worst. That's kind of stunning to me. The Patriots had a historically easy schedule, and it was lined up that way before the season. I mean, I'm not bragging about that. I picked the Patriots to make the playoffs before the season because the schedule was so easy. So it kind of surprises me that
and had a great coach.
They do. Yeah, they have a great CEO type coach, which I think factors into the conversation that we've had is, Mike Vrabel notices so much about what's going on the field when you watch him coach a game. They're against the Houston Texans, they kick an extra point after they score a 4th down touchdown, and he's arguing with the ref, and he's holding up 3 fingers, and I couldn't figure it out, so I rewound it, and the Texans only had 3 guys lined up on one side of the extra point on the offensive line, which is an illegal formation defensively to block a field goal or an extra point. like he notices everything that's going on in the game, but he's not coaching the defense. He's not coaching the offense. You're able to pay more attention to that stuff.
Yeah, he's one of those CEOs who does it all. What I find really fascinating about this Super Bowl matchup, Blair, and I think it transitions almost to a message to the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets and the Las Vegas Raiders, is the Seahawks played the Patriots in the Super Bowl in 2015. And here they are matched up again, 10, 11 years later. And it is a completely different cast of characters. This isn't Chiefs-Eagles 2 or Chiefs-49ers 2, where there's a lot of similarities. And granted, yeah, it is a decade later, but that was Tom Brady versus, Russell Wilson and the Legion of Boom. We know, everyone knows about the play and how it ended up. But I just think here they are 11 years later with completely rebuilt programs, identities, quarterbacks, and it's the same organization. So this idea that you can't follow a long-term plan and turn your organization around, I think this is proof that it's very possible. And to the Patriots' credit, it seemed like they did it in like 2 or 3 years. Seahawks took a little bit of time to build. They got the right head coach in place, and the final piece in Sam, Mr. 346 yards in the NFC Championship, Sam Darnold. But yeah, you don't have to just be in the doldrums forever, and I think these two franchises proved it.
The Patriots were 4-13 each of the last 2 years, right? So that explains why they ended up with the easiest schedule in the league. But it also, with Drake May quarterback, who has not played well in the postseason, terrific regular season, probably will finish runner-up in the MVP voting, but they won in spite of him in the playoffs. But a quarterback on his first contract, which has helped the Patriots build around him. Now, Sam Darnold is making good money this year, but the Seahawks also built a good roster around him. So this is a Super Bowl without Patrick Mahomes, without Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, with Joe Burrow. What's the lesson to be learned here?
I think those teams should look at it as a missed opportunity. I mean, the fallout from those other teams has been pretty clear. I mean, the Ravens missed the playoffs that don't include Patrick Mahomes. They fire their head coach. They're going to have a new OC. The Bills miss an opportunity Patrick Mahomes has been standing in Josh Allen's way for the past decade. And he's going to be 30 years old, and you don't even get past the divisional round. They fire their head coach. I think a lot of other teams, including the Broncos, let's face it, I think had to view this as like their shot, their opportunity, because the Chiefs, even when one year it didn't go literally through Arrowhead, the AFC has gone through the Chiefs for 7 years now. So I think the narrative is going to be really loud, particularly in Buffalo. But I think it should be in Denver as well, because I didn't watch that Denver game, and I know they're missing Bo Nix, and we can have different opinions on Bo Nix. I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are, but I don't know that I saw Denver play this year and thought that team will be a regular appearance in the AFC title game.
Now, they felt like the Chiefs last year, where they were just barely getting by. And it led to a lot of wins. And that's why they were in a position this past Sunday for one more to get it done. I look at this matchup, and, man, I think Sam makes a great point about Vrabel having this team ready. It felt like the Super Bowl to me was on Sunday when the Rams played the Seahawks. It was a great game. It came down to the wire. The Seahawks were just ultimately better, and they're just the way that they're built. And again, quarterback league, all the cliches. Drake May hasn't been playing well, and Sam Darnold was playing really well, and they have a complete team. It's just maybe they cover the spread, like maybe it's way closer than we think. But I really am hard pressed to believe that the Patriots are going to find a way to beat the Seattle team.
So it wasn't a good weekend if your coach was named Sean. Who should the Chiefs be rooting for in this Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually thought that they should have been rooting for the Bills because I don't know. We've seen how tough it is to repeat. We've seen how tough it is when you get everyone's best shot. We've seen how difficult it is when this year I thought this team maybe lacked that hunger that they've had over the past few years. And so I don't know. I guess, the teams you're more likely to encounter, you probably should go ahead and root for them to win, even if that might be hard to stomach for that reason.
I figured if the Bills had won the Super Bowl this year, maybe they'd have lost a little bit of their hunger.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, they were moving into a new stadium next season. Another quest with a new coach. They're going to be just as hungry as ever. Pete, what do you think? Who's Chiefs fans? Who would they want to see win the Super Bowl?
Well, I think in the idea of wanting to sort of keep the dynasty going and that feeling, I think it's the Seahawks. You just talk about organizational success. If you want to call yourself one of the premier franchises or eventually get to the premier franchise, you probably don't want the team with 6 Super Bowls to have 7, I would guess. And, again, I think right when you're living it, it feels slow and it's torturous if you're a Chiefs fan and had to watch this season. But in the grand scheme of things, this could look like a little NFC blip on the radar of maybe, a continued Super Bowl run. And I just tend to think a lot of Chiefs fans are not going to want to see the Patriots sort of recapture glory after, they had kind of established themselves as the kings of the AFC.
Yeah, especially with that coach and quarterback entrenched, perhaps, in New England. Okay. Great conversation with Chiefs beat writer Pete Sweeney and star columnist Sam McDowell. I'll be back with some final thoughts. I'll tell you what's on my radar in Kansas City sports. Here's what's on my radar in Kansas City sports this week. It is a fantastic year for freshmen in men's college basketball, and 2 of the best are scheduled to face off on Saturday when Brigham Young plays at Kansas. BYU features the silky smooth A.J. DeBonsa, a 6'9" small forward who averages nearly 24 points a game and is projected to be the second player selected in this summer's NBA draft. The player who might be taken first? Well, that would be Kansas guard Darren Peterson. Now, Peterson's been battling some injuries throughout the season, and he didn't play in last weekend's victory at Kansas State because of a twisted ankle. But here's hoping the 6'6" shooting guard is healthy enough to play in this highly anticipated showdown that'll tip off at 3:30 p.m. and be televised by ESPN. Also on Saturday, it's the Royals Rally. That's the annual fan festival that occurs at Kauffman Stadium. Players and coaches will be there to sign autographs, engage in roundtable discussions, and more. There are 3 timed entries at 10 a.m., 12:15, and 2:30, and the sessions last 2 hours each. A general admission ticket will cost $27, and a VIP ticket is $152. That gets you into the Royals clubhouse and more perks. Pitchers and catchers report less than 2 weeks later. Go to Royals.com for more information. Well, that'll do it for this week. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Gabriella Lacey, Suzanne Hogan, Irvin Zhang, and Monty Davis, and to our Redditors, Jeff Rosen and Scott Chasen. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon on SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City.